fortunately had to attend a shiva. Siman Samach Vav Sif Zion regarding Hata Iska. Mashad Dechuka. The loan has to be concluded in a hurry. But it's not possible to write out the Hata Iska. And you can't do this Baal Peh instead. Obviously, then there is an issue of verification. So it may be that there should be somebody present when it's all done in order to verify the circumstances. Now we come to the similar of a question of Makdim Mois al Haschira. Normally, you can't make advance payment for something which is being sold for merchandise, because that could lead to a question of rebis. But there's a way of doing so as follows. In Makdimaz al Tzchara, if one advances money for merchandise, you can write a heta iska, which is the following. I'm reading a translation. I understand, hereby agree. I've received from Ruvain wine stock from Ungva, an example of a place. Sach Mer Zahovim, Austria, gold Austrian pieces. Obviously, this gives us an interesting insight into the historical context of the time of the Kitzur. The Sasik B'Maz Zeh, B'Mashin Sh'ani Machzik B'Sefer Jan, to engage in business in a alcoholic production, which I have in the village of Zan. Ad Rosh Chodesh Nisan up to Rosh Chodesh Nisan. And the profit after deduction of all expenses, half mine and half belonging to Ruvain. I have said, also if there's a loss, it was shared equally. And immediately when it comes to Rosh Chodesh Nisan, and the Ruvain, I have to return to him as a Karen in the principal as well as his share of the profits. And I will not be trusted to say that I have incurred a loss, in which case obviously the operating provisions for loss will apply. Only if it's been proved through two witnesses. And with regard to profit, I will not be believed. I have to make a sure what the profit's going to be. And those Husnobi but we've agreed between us. If I want a Rosh Chodesh Nisan, to give to Ruvain instead of the money, the principal, and also his share of the profits, spirits, the amount of 5 measures of spirits, he shall have no further claim against me. And any credibility which is given to the person who holds the document shall continue to be in effect after payment is due. And in that way, I received compensation for my work that I've done. In other words, it means that he's taking on to pay a certain amount in lieu of giving back the principal, which means that then it is considered to be an ASEC, an ISKA, rather than a loan. And then the signature clauses at the bottom of the document. Next, Tess. This is concerning a person who wants to use a Heta Iska as an investment, but who wants to have a document which in the law of the country would also protect him. For that regard, it has to be a loan to get the protection of the law of the country, because the law may not recognize the idea just of Iska. So this is the discussing the seat here. If the person putting in the money wants the person who's receiving the money to give him a shtar chayv, that will be upheld in the law of the land, so that if the person who's taking the money in the end refuses to pay or dies, and it will be once a debt against the estate, it will be able to go to court in order to collect the money. So obviously it raises issues of our cause of going to court, but assuming that that was done in a permissible manner, for example, the admission of the base, he now wants a valid legal document which looks to be like a shtar bar chayv and a shabar pehim masnim. But they say verbally that the money that's being put in is not a loan, but it's an iska. Lo mahani. If they just have a loan agreement and verbally they say it's an iska, that doesn't help. But even if the money, the document is only for the keren, the principal money. Since with this document he's able to claim back all the money is invested, even if there's a loss. So because this document could go to a non-Jewish court and recover everything, also that's not allowed because it's not genuine as far as Hata Iska is concerned. Even if the person receiving the money trusts the person who's giving the money, and he's a good person, because money doesn't help. And even if separately gives him a shtar iska as well, which says that the money was given as a shtar iska, it doesn't help because there's still a concern. The person putting money, or those who succeed his estate, and they'll just have a loan agreement which has in what amounts to ribis. And they'll go to court and claim it like a shtar chayv. And there's literally there's no heter to do that. Unless the iska document is in the hands of a third person, which means that somebody else can independently produce the heter iska. Or the investor signs the iska, it's left in the hands of the person who receives the money, or they write on the other document, the shtar chayv, that it has to be done in the way which is set out in the shtar iska, or at least it should be edim, that it's an iska. And in any of those three ways, even if the loan document includes principal and interest, that's acceptable. So you must have a situation where there is a proof of the fact that it's an iska, which is there, included in the primary process of the actual document of the loan. It can't be completely separate. If it is, it runs the risk that it will just look like a chayv with interest. Yod. An iska only helps if it's the truth. That the person is receiving the money in order to take them into business. But if he's not taking the money for asek, he's just going to receive the money to pay off some other debt. The shtar iska doesn't help because it's patently sheker. It's not used for a business venture. But you can do it in the following way. Reuven, example, Reuven needs money, and he also has some schora, some property or merchandise, another place. He can sell it to Shimon at a low price on a Tanai, with a provision that Reuven has the option, that if he does not give this merchandise over to Shimon before a certain date, he will pay so much to Shimon for it, which will be a higher price. So Shimon can see a profit. For Shimon, Yitzhak Reuven as a mice, Shimon gives Reuven the money, the Yasu Kinyan Suda, and they do a Kinyan Suda with a cloth or handkerchief, the Kaima Mechach, in order to show that the sale is valid. Dahainu, Shimon Alokeach, Shimon, who's the buyer, Yitain Kasasmi, Big Dalu Reuven Shispais buy. He gives Shimon some of his clothes in order that Shimon can take hold of it. But then, with that way, who kind of Reuven, he acquires Reuven's schara, merchandise, and it belongs to him. But even if there's no witnesses, this merchandise is now the whole responsibility of Shimon, purchaser. So therefore, it's considered to be a sale, not a loan. And when the date for the item to be handed over comes, and Reuven does not deliver the item, then it's permissible for Reuven to pay Shimon the agreed amount, even though that is more than he received from Shimon in the first place. It's a kind of penalty clause saying if you don't pay by a certain date, this is the amount that will need to be paid. And that way, this kind of transaction can be undertaken. V'chein, Sif Yudala, V'chein Reuven, Shahaya Chai v'Shimon Maz. Reuven owed money to Shimon. The time for payment came. Reuven can't pay the Hispasha. So they made a compromise. Shimon Yamtin as amount. But Shimon would wait until some other time in the future. They'll renegotiate. But in this case, Gam Kain Ein Takana Bishta Iska. You can't use an ISKA document as normal because there's no money that's being put into an investment of a business. And if you use the Shtar Iska just like that, it will clearly be Shaka. But Reuven should sell Shimon some of his merchandise, as we said before. And then he has in this clause saying what will happen if Shimon and Shimon returns the Shtar Chayiv that was previously he had against Reuven. And Reuven gives him a note for the merchandise which he bought from Shimon. And the same as in Sif Tes, we did the same thing. With a clause saying it's not paid by a certain date, then the following provisions will apply. I must add that in this particular one, you have to be very careful, and in any case where there's a halacha lemaisa, we must ask a shayla of somebody who's competent in Hilchos Ribis. A note here, it says as follows, that the document should say that Shimon is selling merchandise so Reuven is selling merchandise to Shimon at a low price, with a condition that if Reuven doesn't sell it over to Shimon before a certain date, he doesn't deliver it, Reuven pays a higher price. Reuven owes Shimon £1,000. Shimon can purchase the merchandise for £1,000 with an agreement to pay him £1,100 if he doesn't deliver the merchandise by a certain date. It's a kind of penalty clause. When the date arrives and it's not been delivered, Shimon now receives £1,100 for the merchandise. Next, Yud Beis. A Jewish person gives to another person an animal to raise, with the agreement that whatever profits they make from the animal later on will divide it equally. This is like giving Mars with an Iska, and follows the same situation that we've already explained. Half the animal is considered to be lent, and half to the owner, which was entrusted to the farmer who's doing the work or business with it. Since the farmer is looking after the owner's portion only because he was lent the other half, so to speak, it's prohibited as ribis unless the owner compensates the farmer for his efforts and pays half of the animal's feed, etc., in the same way that we explained before.